All right, we're back. And good on you for staying with this and thinking of it. And good on you for looking at this holistically. You were, right? You are, right? Looking at it holistically. It's not just about what you eat or how you move, although those are crucial and important factors. It's all coming together, right? Everything that we've been learning so far all feeds into each other. So, you know now the importance of having a why. By the way, you do know and remember that what leads to mastery? The mother of mastery is repetition. So it's not by accident. I'm not being insulting to your intelligence. Repetition is what brings it in and helps us utilize it. Second thing that's really helpful for you with this is to right, one, 3 steps of mastery. One is learning here, making new connections in the brain. Awesome. Two is knowing why it's important, getting the emotional component. And three is putting it into practice. So to enhance this first stage, the mental model building, the new understanding, the connections that are happening, I encourage you to be listening to me, to taking this in with a mind toward, with an intention toward teaching it. And in fact, already be teaching it, sharing it with the people in your life, thinking about how can this information be useful not only to me, but to people that I care about in my life. Because when we listen that way, when we learn that way, we digest and can assimilate, interesting phrasing, right? Digest and assimilate information in a much more useful and productive way. So we know that why is important. We know that having a picture of what health is, rather than just it's not when I'm sick, is important too. We know that energy is infinite. Right? Knowing why we want the energy is a big part of what pulls it forward, what allows us to have it. And then, where does energy come from? That's a question to you. Where does energy come from? Cells. Right? Yes. 3 things that cells need in order to thrive and survive. They are: number 1, oxygen; number 2, agua, right? They need conductivity; and number 3, the ability to eliminate their own waste. Okay. Now, what causes a cell to get sick or die? Right? And if you haven't done it yet, done live blood cell analysis, I encourage you to do it. It's so cool. I mean, one is it's an incredible diagnostic tool. Two, it's so amazing and useful to see the way the blood works and what it looks like underneath a microscope. And it can be a little bit horrifying, even for me, who has been very dedicated and even obsessive about health sometimes. There have been times in my life when I've looked at my live blood cell analysis and I'm like horrified at the clumps and the distortions in them, yet really useful to understand, oh, okay, it's time for me to adjust something. What do I need to switch? On that note, a slight tangent for you if you ever get the chance, and I encourage you to create it: body worlds, right? And you can there's probably an online version or an application or something. The best though is if you can go to body worlds, and you can find out about it, bodyworlds.com. When I first discovered this was probably like 20 years ago. I was visiting a friend in London, and a yoga friend of mine said, hey, you want to go to body worlds? And I went for it. It was down by Spitalfields Market, and it was this exhibit. A guy, I think he's a German guy, figured out a way of plastifying body systems and body parts in people that were already dead, and coloring them in such a way that we could get these like incredible models of what the body systems actually look like. Fascinating, really useful, and they have so many different models, like showing diseased lungs, smokers' lungs, and healthy lungs. I won't go into any more detail. Fascinating and so worthwhile. And now there are several of these. At the time there was only one. Now there are shows, exhibitions all around the world concurrently. All right, so back to the question. What causes cells to get sick or die? Right, so you can, as you think about that, go back to what do they need to survive and thrive? Right, so a lack of oxygen is one of the biggest ones. And so this may inspire you to go back to lessons 1 and 2 and re-up your ability to understand breath and how it works, and reinvigorate your breathing practice on a daily basis. One of the benefits of that, by the way, is yes, as you do the breathing practice, you get energy, you get clarity, it taps you into spirit. Another great benefit is it makes you aware of your breathing all throughout the day to a higher degree, which means that not only do you get the benefits while doing the practice, you get accrued benefits all day long of more breath, more oxygen, more energy. What else can negatively impact a cell? A disturbance in the electrical field. Can you hear that, by the way? Really interesting. I'm coming to you from where I live on Maui, right? And I've been living at this location for 3 months. And when I first got here, right, for me, it's so important to be in an environment that is healthy and natural. And this is such an environment. Last year, when I was living in LA, it was very difficult for me psychically and spiritually, emotionally, and physically, because there's so much stimulation, so much stimulus, so much disturbance in the electrical field. Now, in case you can't hear it, what that sound is that I'm referring to is an electrical hum. It's like, shortly after I got here, I was like, what is that? And it took me almost a week to figure it out. I asked everybody around here. People hadn't even noticed it. And finally, I started walking around like bigger and bigger circles. I met somebody who's lived here a long time, and I asked him what it was. It's a electrical, not generator, but electrical, I don't know the name of it, related to a golf course down here where they need to generate and process a lot of electricity. And that is an abnormal, unhealthy electrical. Now, I'm okay. I'm lucky that it's fairly far away. This is not rocket science, though. We know all about this quite well, right? EMFs, electromagnetic fields, are something that we have naturally to us. And to some degree, we could say that our energy or our health could be measured by, and is measured by, certain instruments detect this, our energy field. And I gave it to you before in talking about the meditative process and the effects of stress, how stress comes in and it depletes our energy, whereas when we consciously meditate, manifest, create, we build the torus field. You may remember that image of an upward moving energy created by the Laksa Bandhas and the breath that sends, and our intention, that sends energy up like this. And when that happens, it sends energy up and out and creates this circular field. Right? If that's not familiar to you right now, you can review or just do a quick search for torus field, Torus, right? And so that energy generation is the expansion of our energetic field. That is an electromagnetic field. Thoughts are the language of electricity. Electricity is the language of thoughts, of the mind, of the brain. The heart, emotions, are related to magnetism. So when we align our intention with an elevated emotion, we create an enhanced electromagnetic field. You with me? Stay with me, because I'm going to pull together some different strands that will make this whole thing brighter, illuminated in a whole different way for you. So the next question then becomes, what else has an electromagnetic field? Everything has an electromagnetic field. Some are positive and life enhancing, some are disturbing. What's the second thing that causes cells to damage or die? A disturbance in the electrical field. Who can handle electrical field disturbances? Who? Mother Earth. Brings us back to grounding and earthing, right? Here on the human plane, so much stimulus, so much electrical energy, which you can think of in terms of the stimulation that's coming to us from just the media, from advertisers, from electronics, from the devices. All of that tends to pull our energy out, pull our attention out, right? All of the electronics that are so important and useful to us all create electromagnetic fields. I won't go into it now, and in case there's any doubt in your mind, do a little research on the health and emotional psychic damaging effects of electromagnetic fields from cell phones alone. Never mind cars and electrical boxes like that one on the golf course down there. Tons of it. Which is not to say gloom and doom, worry. It's to say good to be aware of what impacts our cells, and then to get to what we can do about it. Earthing is one thing, right? Another is the environment we're in, right? In some ways, this is one of the great breakthroughs that we've had around health and genetics and human potential in the last years. Is we originally believed, right, back when what's his name, Crick and the other guy, when they discovered DNA and genetic expression, we then believed that our destiny was determined by our genetics, right? And we believed that for a long time. That was our model. And then at one point we said, well, hold on, wait a minute, that's not it. In fact, it's the environment that determines our capabilities, our destiny. Ooh, wait, but then we found out that's not true either, that in fact it's our perception of the environment. And this is where Dr. Bruce Lipton's work was so important for us. And what we have come to learn since then is that our environment is actually determined by us. Right? Pretty radical, right? Our belief and the way we see the world determines the environment. And going again back to our module on mysticism, manifestation, and meditation, we know that through the quantum model that has replaced the Newtonian model, mostly what we have is empty space, and that we are programming it with our thoughts and our feelings. So, before I get too far afield for you right now, we were just on the second cause of cellular deterioration, and it is a disturbance in the electrical field. What balances, who can take that, the negative energy, the disturbances? Mother Earth, so grounding, which could mean literally simply walking barefoot on the ground, very powerful. Breathing is another great way to do it. Visualizing, remembering our connection to the ground, getting into our bodies, right? So physical practice as opposed to how easy it is to live in the mental, electrical, right? And then also, I highly recommend the devices. You can go to earthing.com and look at, I have one for my computer, my keyboard, that plugs into an outlet to the grounding part of the outlet, right? So it means that when I'm touching my keyboard, it's touching a grounding that goes all the way into the earth. There are pads that you can sleep on that enhance that. Enough about that for now. I'll leave that to you to research more if you wish. So the second cause of cellular breakdown, disturbance in electrical field, right? Again, pointing to the importance of our spiritual practice, right? Because that is what refines, that brings light to the darkness or the disruption of the electrical field. And then the last thing I'll say for now about cellular deterioration is physical rupture, right? As in any accident, right? That's fairly obvious. When that happens, it inhibits the cells, it breaks them down, or it can actually kill them. The incredible thing, though, is we have infinite ability to restore and regenerate on a cellular level. Even in the brain, we know now that neurogenesis is a reality, right? And of course, one of the biggest factors in regeneration and recuperation is actually having the ability to do it. What gets in the way of that? Stress is the biggest one. Living by the emotions of stress, right? So practicing on a daily basis, getting out of that, what's called in yoga, pratyahara, withdrawal of the senses, coming back into ourself and generating energy rather than being bombarded by it is so important, as is quality of sleep, quality and quantity of sleep, right? We are at an epidemic crisis level in the world right now for sleep deterioration, for sleep deprivation. All right. Now, a lot of information. How you doing? What happens right now if you take a huge breath? Isn't it great to know that when you do that, you are actually feeding your cells? You are literally creating energy. The exhale is releasing stress. The exhale is not just releasing carbon dioxide. The exhale is helping you ground also. Right. So we'll bring this piece to a conclusion. We're discovering, we're understanding cell health, what deteriorates it and what creates it. And we were talking in the last clip about one of the big problems. So obviously, breathing is key, right? We know that. That's the main way that we get oxygen. We know that getting enough water, and good quality water, is important through drinking water and also through the foods we eat. And on the flip side, looking at foods and drinks that dehydrate us being anathema or against our health and energy creation. These are fairly obvious. What's not so obvious, this is the last thing I'll give you. Are you still with me? Stay with it. Can you hang in there for another minute? How do we release toxins, right? Auto-intoxication, that was the third way that we damage cells. How do we do that? How do cells not have the ability to eliminate their own toxins? Well, one is just overconsumption, right? We eat and drink too much, and we talked about that some. Two is by getting chemical additives in that the body doesn't know how to deal with, which then points to the so important to be eating organic, so important to be minimizing the toxins that we get through food and also through environmental and also through our skin. We'll talk more about that later, right? And how do we eliminate toxins? When you're fasting, what do people tell you? Drink lots of water. You just went to a yoga class where you sweated a lot. You're cleansing. Drink lots of water, the teacher might say. Cool, good advice. The urinary system, in fact, together with the kidneys as being part of it, does help us process and release toxins. Absolutely. What's interesting and little known, though, is that's actually not our primary way of detoxifying. What system? The lymph system. Underrated, doesn't get a lot of press, yet so important. And what's really key and fascinating to know is the lymph system, unlike the circulatory system, right? The circulatory, the system that pumps the blood, has a pump, the heart, right? It's a pump. It will keep the blood moving. The lymph system, the primary way of detoxifying, has no pump. Right? Fascinating. And part of what that means is unless we work it, and I'll give you at the last part of this piece ways to work it, unless we work it, it doesn't work, and that means toxins tend to accumulate. So, what are the ways to pump the lymph system? It has to be done manually. It has to be done consciously. One, breathing. Conscious breathing is very powerful and helpful for the lymph system. Two, stretching and moving. That's part of why yoga is so valuable, is when we move and pump muscles, that also moves the lymph system. right? There can be lymphatic drainage or lymphatic massage that can be very helpful. Also, skin brushing, right? And if you don't know what that is or how to do it, just look it up. There's lots of great info. Super powerful dry skin brushing. I do it every morning, and it's one of the first things I do. It helps move the lymph system and help release toxins. And then the last one I will give you for now, generally speaking, when I'm sharing stuff with you, I don't want to give you things that say you need this, you have to buy this, and you don't have to do anything. And here is an investment that I think is one of the best no-brainer investments you can ever make, and it is a rebounder or a trampoline, mini trampoline. Now, part of why it's so powerful is what happens on a mini trampoline. In fact, I'll show you in a little bit how to work with it, is when you jump up and down on it, when you hit the trampoline base, it goes down and then springs up. And essentially what it does is it takes the force of gravity and multiplies it. So when you do it, every cell in the body goes, right? It contracts and releases, contracts and releases. Every cell does that through deceleration and acceleration. It's incredibly powerful, to the point that I recommend doing just 10 minutes a day. And you can, if you do a little research on this, you'll find tons of supporting info for it. It's one of Tony Robbins' top techniques. The guy I learned from, Dave, geez, I lost his name right now. Fantastic and amazing the results you get from it for activating the lymph system. If you add to that certain movements, it's an incredible workout as well. I use it also as a time for saying incantations. You remember that? We're talking about the use of words and positive practices. Incantations work really well with rebounding. Now, 10 minutes a day is really enough, and doing it early in the day helps flush out the lymph system. I never get sick, and I'm convinced that part of the reason for that, even when I push myself hard, is because I keep it flowing. I keep my lymph system working. I help my cells to release the toxins. And of course, taking in less toxins makes it easier. But still, the thing is, we're all going to get some toxins. We live in a world that has toxicity to it, right? We don't need to get all uptight and live in a bubble. Of course, we want to be conscious about it and minimize it, and know that no matter what we do, we're going to get some toxins. So if we can optimize the ways we release it, fantastic. Before you buy a rebounder, know this: quality does count. You don't have to spend $1,000. You do have to spend more than $50, though. The really cheap ones you see at sports stores usually aren't the ones. You'll probably need to spend $200 or $300 to make sure you get one with a quality base and good quality springs. There's Jump Sport makes some good ones. You need to make sure that the quality of the springs and the platform are such that it doesn't put strain on your joints, right? And provides enough room, enough movement so that the deceleration and acceleration works for you. All right. Now, that's been a whirlwind. So I'm going to pause it there for now. Main things we've looked at in this video and the last one are the infinite possibility of energy, right? It's an infinite game. There is never an end to the amount of energy we can create. We've looked at what cells need to bring in energy to thrive and survive. What are the three things? Oxygen, water, and the ability to eliminate the toxins. We looked at what hurts cells, and we know that that has to do with lack of oxygen, that's obvious, disturbance of electrical field, and any physical rupturing. So that reminds us that getting ample time to restore is important, right? Did you know that the lymph system actually has 3 times more in our body? We have 3 times more lymph system than we do blood. right? It's so important and so unsung. So consciously working with your lymph system, skin brushing, breathing, moving, stretching, and rebounding are key for that. All right. We will get more specific about what to take in and what we want to eliminate or reduce in our diets coming up soon. I'll leave you with that for now. I hope that is useful, interesting, and of course, as always, please let me know what doesn't make sense, what you want to know more of, how I can help you work with this information better, because the proof is in the pudding, and that means the results. This is one of the great things about the bottom of the pyramid of vibrancy is the physical stuff. It's very measurable. We can tell what's working and what's not by the results we're getting, the energy we have, how we feel, how we look, right? It's measurable, it's obvious. So please be paying attention more and more all the time to the results you're getting, and let's figure out together how to optimize that. It is trial and success here, right? We all have biochemical individuality, which means we're not the same. We've got different constitutions, and we need to be aware of that to learn. Trial and success. All right. To your success. Enough for now. I'll see you soon.